This episode, Spring Tool Tune-Up. Say that one 3 times fast, baby. All right, John was tuning up his lawnmower the other day, and we were talking, and we said to ourselves, we've never done a show on tuning up your tools for spring. So, voila, a show is born. Welcome to the Handyman Pros Radio Show, home improvement and maintenance tips from the pros. Thanks for listening to another edition of the Handyman Pros Radio Show, where our goal is to help save you time, money, and aggravation on your home maintenance and repair. This edition is entitled Spring Tool Tune-Up. And to help me explain, I'm here with my ever cheerful co-host, an old buddy who tunes up his tools all the time. Excuse me. Johnny, what's going on this week? What? It's a family show. Never mind. Anyway, Johnny, what's going on, buddy?
Well, nothing outside of actually the work. But you actually brought up, what I was doing, tuning up the lawnmower. The one thing I'm not going to do quite yet is sharpen the blades yet.
Yep, because it's still springy.
It's still springy, and there's a lot of little sticks and stuff that I'm going to be hitting anyways.
Yep.
on the first mow,
that just needs to be ground.
Yep. Yeah, so I'm gonna wait for that. But after that, I've got every intention of taking those off, sharpening them, and rebalancing. So
there's your first tip of the first tip of the show that wasn't even intentional, is that if you've got a lot of trash in your yard, don't sharpen your blade initially. That's just really one of the very first tips. We will talk about sharpening blades because obviously that's part of a spring tool tune-up. But if you think about it, if you are going to go out there, if you've got excess pine cones and excess twigs and things that aren't big enough to actually rake up, understand your first few runs might be a little rough on the old blade, so it might not be a good idea to sharpen it. All right, before we get really started, get really deep into it, don't forget to like and subscribe our channels. We really appreciate it. It helps get the word out. The algorithms and the AI has to look at it. They want to see what you like so they can see what we like. All right, with that.
Yeah, Johnny, AI wants to know what were the 5 things you did last week.
The AI wants to know what the 5 things you did last week are. That's right. So anyway, we're going to talk about a bunch of stuff that I don't know that we've talked about much of this stuff, but I was like sitting there saying, gee, we've never really talked about just your tools in general, about tuning them up, but this is going to, gear a lot about stuff that's outside, and then some of your hand tools and some things like that. So kind of a good thing. So start us off, Johnny. What are we going to start with?
Well, I just was mentioning sharpening blades. The other thing I just did was, you and I have these angle grinders, right? With just some sandpaper, the discs and stuff like that. I just sharpened up some of my shovels.
Yes. So when we say sharpen blades, what are the things that we should be sharpening? So you just mentioned shovels. We talked earlier a little bit about lawnmower blades, but what else?
Well, I just since I had that out and I was doing this. I just did my my pruning stuff too.
Yep.
I took advantage of that. The loppers, those great big loppers.
Yep.
And I'm like, man, I haven't touched that blade in a long time, And I just took the angle grinds, and put a little edge on it. Well, it works like a champ,
It's kind of funny, John. Remember, I did the sewer line a couple weeks ago. We did a show on that.
Yeah.
But I actually sharpened my axe, and I hadn't sharpened I will honestly say I don't know if I had ever after I finished it. It was so sharp. I was like, wow, this is how it's supposed to cut.
Yeah.
And I think that some of these things are like, when you use it and you don't sharpen it, you don't realize how dull it gets and how much more efficient it is once you do sharpen it up once in a while. So to your point, the pruners, and stuff like that, boy, if you haven't done it, might be time to do it for the first time.
I did it and I oiled them up and everything, and try to knock off as much rust off those things as I could, knowing that this is going to be now the season that I'm going to be putting my hands on these things and using them. And I'm not going to break my back any more than I have to,
Correct.
in that respect.
So on sharpening too, just some things to remember. You don't necessarily have to have an angle grinder or a piece of sandpaper. You can use a sharpening tool or a file or any
Yeah,
number
a
of ways to
file.
sharpen
Yeah.
stuff up. Files work really, really well, particularly on smaller things or more, I'm going to say more delicate things, I guess, where you kind of have to be careful. You use a 4-inch grinder, it takes stuff off pretty quickly. Just be aware.
Yeah.
Some things it matters, some things it doesn't. Your lawnmower blade, it doesn't really matter that much. You can take off a lot, quickly. But
As long as it stays balanced.
As long as it stays balanced, yeah. So
yeah, I mean, I keep a knife sharpener in my toolbox, my tool bag.
I sharpen my knives in my house almost every
all the
week
time.
just because. Yeah, just on a
I do all the time.
knife,
all the time.
Draw blades. So, all right. So anyway, so sharpen your blades. That's one thing. Cleaning off the winter grime. Scrub your rust off. Remember, your tools, even your hoes, your gardens, you can sharpen those sometimes. I don't know about a hoe, but definitely sharpen a shovel every once in a while. But how about you just clean it off every once in a while too? Get all the gunk off it, put a little oil on it, a little just light oil will protect it. It actually makes it work better too, believe it or not. If you put a little oil on your shovel and you go to dig, it literally lubricates the shovel going in. So just kind of those kinds of things, clean them off, make it good. Check your handles too, right, John? If you
then there's that, especially like on axes and things like that. You want to make sure that the head's not going to fly off. If it's cracked, just like like hammers and things like that, right?
Even a shovel, if you have a wooden handle shovel and it's got a splinter in it,
you get
much fun.
No, not so much fun.
So check that stuff. Check to make sure the screws are tightened. To John's point, like if you've got a head, don't try cutting with a wobbly axe head. Really bad idea, especially a sharp head. Once you sharpen it, now you have a flying sharp projectile.
Yeah.
Not so much fun. Blah blah blah, that kind of thing. Hand tools, Johnny, kind of same thing, right? Go over some things there.
Well, if you have, I will say that besides the really nice screwdrivers from Chapman, I would say that if you're going to start, your spring and summer maintenance stuff, and check out some of your screwdrivers and make sure that they're not really screwed up, so to speak, and grind them back down, whatever they need to do. Hand gardening tools and things like that too.
Maybe put a little oil on them too. Again,
yep.
Put a little rust
protectant. And here's a good little tip, and that is, one of the things I found that works really well is these nylon rotary brushes that you can put on the end of your drill. Okay, they work really good at removing rust without goofing up, some
taking too much
metal off.
Yeah.
Or embedding metal into, aluminum products and things like that. So, that's you can always consider using something like that. But I got some shovels out there that I'm doing it right now that were just all rusty, and now they look like they're new. It's like, what do I do? I even have some old, here's another one. I even had some old spray paint sitting on my shelf that I'm probably never going to use for anything else. You know what I did? I just dried them all off, and I just threw some, it was like a Rust-Oleum, and I sprayed them.
Why not?
So
if you see a purple shovel, you'll know it's John.
Yeah, exactly. Who cares, right? But I'm like, hey, if it protects it, and then throw a little, WD-40 on some of the worn spots and things like that, and you're good to go.
Yep. And you're good to go. Yeah, it makes a huge difference.
It makes a huge difference. Don't forget.
Yeah, check your set screws and stuff too on some of your tools. If it's got a set screws, check it, make sure it's tight. And don't forget, put a little drop of thread locker on it. I kind of forgotten about thread locker, Johnny, and I kept having this one screw that came apart, and I'm like, I got to remember to tell people about using thread locker. And thread locker, you can buy it pretty much anywhere. But remember, there's 2 or 3 different kinds, so there's some are more permanent than others. I use the blue stuff. It's not as
just
permanent.
Get the blue stuff and you're good.
Yeah, if you get the blue stuff, you're safe all the time.
Yeah, you're good.
You don't have to worry about it. So yeah, it's that kind of stuff. Just some of the little things. Also, again, it's kind of time to organize your stuff. If your tools are a bit of a shambles, not necessarily shambles, but if they're a little unorganized, might be time to get some kind of organizational thing so you can keep your tools handy and visible. Right? Just good stuff.
It's time for this guy here to clean out the garage too and
Yeah,
reorganize. And that's going to be a whole nother, that's a month.
it's time for this guy to organize his truck, and that's a month.
Yeah.
Oh,
So
you know,
there's plenty to do here.
Yep. So Johnny, you got some painting projects come up, right? So maybe we should talk about doing some painting gear tune-ups.
Yes. I was going around the house the other day since the weather's starting to break and looking at everything that needs to be caulked. And then I'm thinking, oh, you know what? I can reach a lot of places. I might as well just, touch all this stuff up. Now, because we do what we do, as handymen, we have all of our painting gear, pretty much organized and cleaned up.
Speak for yourself. Keep going.
But if you don't do what we do, right, and you've done painting before, most people will put their paint gear away, and not really even know where they put it. But if you're in this in this mode of what I'm experiencing, is that, hey, you want to get out and just start to paint, some things, caulk, paint, and that kind of stuff. Time to get that stuff out.
Yep.
Know where it's at. Know if you got some paint. Is it any good? If it's not, get rid of it,
Yep.
so on and so forth.
Get your brushes in shape.
Get the brushes in shape, that the whole bit. Yep.
Comb them out, get the gunk out, get the excess gunk out of them. Get your rollers rehabbed or buy new ones if you need to, because don't go and anticipate, take a look at it before you start the project, right? Do I need a new roller or not? Check your frames. Are your frames good and lubricated? Do they work right? Because one of the worst things, and I've actually had this happen. So it's like, you go to roll the paint in, and you think it's going to be fine.
Yeah, and
you
the
go
cage
to roll
will
it,
move.
and it just smears it, right?
Yeah, right.
It just doesn't roll. It smears.
Yeah.
It's like, oh, why did I waste, over nothing? Just go buy a new one. They're not terribly expensive. If you've got a sprayer, definitely before you do a project, make sure your sprayer is working completely with, is it nothing's gunked up or gummed up, or you've got dried paint or anything in there, because it happens, right? It happens on it. A lot of these newer sprayers are actually a lot easier to clean than they used to be too. So maybe it's time to get rid of an old one and get a new one, but that's up to you. So anyway. Johnny, power tools, we were talking about this, we're talking about, I guess there's two types of power tools. There's gas power tools and there's electric power tools. So I guess let's start with electric powered tools. It's probably easier. What do you check on a power tool for your electric?
Well, now, once again, we work in this environment. So,
Yep.
But we are aware of, where our batteries are and what the lifespan is on those batteries and how old they are and how they've been used. I will tell you that I got a couple now that are starting to already kind of
show their age.
Yeah, let's put it that way. Yep.
Yeah. They're getting long in the tooth, as they say. So just understand your batteries, check them to see if do they need to be charged? Are they working right? Blah, blah, blah. Is it time to upgrade? Kind of past Christmas. Christmas is always the best time to upgrade that stuff because the deals are unbelievable. But anyway, be that as it may, it's still if you need it, you need to check it out. It's just don't assume, right? Because guess what happens when you assume? It's the same old.
Right.
Check your cords. If you're still using corded tools, which I've still got a bunch of corded tools.
Yeah.
I always check my cords before I use them, just because stuff happens. Believe it or not, here little known facts about electrical cords, right, Johnny? What's a little known fact about electrical cord as far as when you wrap it up? Do you know where I'm going with this?
What?
Just say no then.
Well, I will tell you how I do it. Okay. And everybody can go look it up on YouTube or whatever. I do the over and under method of wrapping cords now.
But you always leave a good amount of loop in it. Is that correct?
And I twist. There's it's hard to explain especially if you're listening on a podcast, how you do the over under, but it's almost like, when you were a DJ, how you would wrap up all your cords, and there's a way to do it where you're not pinching the cords and stuff like that. Because after a while, you can really screw these things up.
You
and
can
don't
break
forget
the wires inside the cord. You can actually break the wires.
Yeah, you can break the wires,
cord, and then it does not work.
And don't forget, if you have a high amp tool, let's say a table saw, portable table saw or something that you're using, and you use a skinny extension cord, you ain't going to get all the power out of that tool. It's just not going to carry the volts or the amps coming through there.
And if you don't wrap those cords right and break the inside, you achieve the same thing.
That's where I was going with this. You'll achieve the same thing. You achieve the same thing. Now, I will say that, if you guys out there that worked on a real construction site and you have to have all the tags that come with the cord on the cord anymore. You can't do any repairs to the cord, or the guys will come by and cut that thing up in a million pieces. But as a homeowner, you can, replace the ends of your cords that are frayed, or, like an extension cord with a new plug on it. And they sell those things at the big box stores. But, just, you have to go and look at, the way doing over and under. And that way, when you take out your extension cord, you can just throw it out onto the driveway or whatever. And there's no kinks. There's no anything on it. So Correct. It's quite a little good trick. It just takes a bit of watching how you can do it. And it happens pretty quick. So,
and once you learn how to do it, you'll do it that way all the time. It becomes just very, very natural.
Exactly.
It really does. It just becomes very, very natural.
Exactly.
And then, again, on your battery power tools, again, check your blades. Are they sharp? If they're not sharp, gosh, battery tools is where you really notice it, because battery has limited power to a degree anyway, and you have a limited power. So the sharper your blades, the more efficient your batteries, or the longer your batteries run, they become more efficient. So check your blades, make sure they're good. All right, now we're going to get to lawnmower spring prep. Johnny, you just did it, so talk to us. Baby.
Yeah. So this is the classic tune-up, changing the oil, changing the filter. In my case, on my John Deere, it's the fuel pump is on the side of the engine. Yep. That whole thing.
Oil change, spark plug, air filter.
All that. It's the typical
and
thing.
fuel filter if you have one. And if you don't have a fuel filter, put one in.
Yeah, you're all going to have a fuel filter. But, like I said, I did all that. Except I'm not sharpening the blades quite yet. So, but anyways, no, it's a good thing to accomplish.
Yeah, it's
and,
well worth it.
And also it's for me, I've got the grease gun, I've got the Zerk fittings on all the on all the tie rods and stuff in the steering column and all that kind of stuff. So
I'm not going to make any disparaging greasy comments, Johnny.
No greasy comments. Saying.
Just saying. Anyway, go through all that stuff too. I always want to reiterate, there's the one fact: modern fuels, please, if you're doing small engines, buy non-ethanol fuel. Let me rephrase it: buy non-ethanol fuel. Spend the extra money. It will save you aggravation and grief and cash for it's funny, John.
Yeah, especially speaking. Yeah, I was just going to say, Larry, that's a good point, especially for tools that you might not use a lot.
A lot, yes.
Like maybe a chainsaw.
A chainsaw, even a lawnmower. You really, believe it or not, you don't use your lawnmower as much as you think you do. You do. It's once a week, but once a week is not a lot compared to what you might use.
I haven't had any problem. They did change some of the ethanol stuff around with some additives in there that stopped what used to happen. But your point is well taken. You can go search your local area by the gas stations who sells that stuff. Like at what is it?
Well, around here, pretty much
it's the red pump, right? The red handle pump.
Usually check it, but it's usually the red pump.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it's just so, look, the amount of fuel that you use in a piece of small equipment is so small at the end of the year. If you use, I don't know, if you use
5 gallons,
whatever. You're going to use 5 gallons is more like it.
Yeah.
I mean, you're going to use like 5 gallons. So you pay $1.50 extra. Gee, that's $7.
Yeah.
What's it cost you to replace that carburetor?
Well, it's
more than that.
and you know, or clean it out. It's not just that, right? It's the time that when you get out there, do you really want to use it? That the thing doesn't work.
Oh my God! Yeah, it's all of that stuff.
And I'll tell you,
money and aggravation.
And
it's mostly aggravation.
Exactly.
Oh,
and I will tell you that it happened to me with my chainsaw, and that's why I bring it up.
Yep.
And I had to rebuild the carburetor, had to rebuild a bunch of stuff in there, replace the hoses and stuff.
Replace the hoses and stuff. It's a pain in the neck. It's a pain.
And that what happened was it swelled up the cap, or the the cap to the gas tank. So I had to use a wrench to get it off, and I had to modify that thing because it was swelled up because of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
But here's the
pressure washers.
But here's
how about same thing with pressure washers, right?
But here's the thing, you know, with the chainsaw, I don't use it that much, but when I have an emergency, I need to use it.
You need it.
That's the key.
You need it.
And after I did that,
sure.
and I've said this, and I think I relayed the story before, and after I did that rebuild of that chainsaw, wouldn't you know, that week following, we had a storm and a tree fell across our driveway, and I had to cut it up or we couldn't get out of here, you know? So timely.
There you go.
Anyways. Yeah.
All right. So pressure washers. If you got a gas powered pressure washer, all of what we just talked about applies. Then also check your hoses. Make sure your nozzles are working. You know, check everything. Just make sure, because pressure washers, of course, they've got a lot of rubber parts or flexible parts, we'll call them that, and they wear and they get torn up and they get kind of icky. So, you know, check your tips and stuff. Make sure everything's working before you get things happening. And fuel, again, check your fuel because it gets gummy and so forth and so on. All the same things we just talked about, lawnmowers and small engines in general. Personally, use non-ethanol fuel once again, because it's just not worth not using it. This is what it is. Safety gear, Johnny, and ladders. What do we got on that stuff?
Oh, check this out. I guess it was about 3 years ago that I was looking at my ladder my extension ladder, and man, that thing, the squirrels had eaten the plastic. They're like the little dogs that kind of ride up on each rung and lock it in.
Yep.
And they're like little plastic flippers on there.
Yep.
Yeah. So I had to go and order all that stuff. I just had looked at it, you know, just inspect it. I wasn't even going to use it. And I said, you know, I haven't used this thing in a while. I'm just going to make sure this thing is still, you know, that nothing's busted or, you know, before I get up on it. And sure enough, I'm like, oh man. So, you know, check that stuff for safety. All the bolts.
Check it. Make sure your grips are good. You know, clean them off with a little alcohol if you need to. Get the mud off of it. Make it good. You know, test for gear refresh test. Do you have your gloves? Do you have your goggles? Are your goggles clear from scratches? You know, do you need ear protection? Do you have ear protection? You know, get all that stuff. It's all important stuff. Make sure you got it if you need it. Gloves. I find, as I've gotten older, Johnny, I don't know if you found this, but do you find your skin's gotten thinner? I always thought that was not true. Like I always thought that was old guys just talking about it. Well, now I'm finding out it's not so. So I wear gloves a lot more than I used to, just to protect my hands. And I don't tend to wear goggles because I wear glasses, so I have eye protection on all the time. But definitely, you know, eye protection is really, really important, and then ear protection too if you're in a situation that you're doing that kind of stuff.
So I just
good habits.
I just bought some new safety glasses with reader lenses in it.
Yep.
So I got a pair of those, and I've got some ear protection. And I just had to use the hammer drill.
Oh yeah, it's a good one.
And man, I will tell you, put those things in, man. When you're using the hammer drill, you'll drive yourself nuts.
Yep, yeah, absolutely. All right, yeah. Let's see, what's the next thing? We talked about outdoor extension cord care already, so we're not going to redo that one. But what about just your storage area and your workbench and all the places where you do your stuff? What do we got going on there?
Well, you know what I did? I try to keep it clean all the time. Now I haven't stuck to my, that philosophy as of the last 2 weeks, but I've got to clean it off. So I'm going to, oil it down, clean it up, spray some stuff on there. Yep. And all the tools that surround it, like my vise and everything else, and clean. Just get it all down. I can't stand an unorganized workbench. I never could.
I can't stand an unorganized and or dirty workbench either.
Yeah, that's
so
what
I like
mean.
mine.
Yeah.
I like to keep mine clean. I don't do it all the time, but it gets to a point where I stop and I clean everything off, reorganize everything, and then start anew because it just gets crazy.
Correct.
And then my wife, she's big on this. She loves the damn blue tape and a magic marker to mark everything. And I'm glad she does. It just I'm just like, okay, I know that's my boots. So you don't need the thing. I don't need on one of my boots, it's boot, right? Thanks. I'm picking on her, but no, she does. She marks up the boxes to tell me what's in the boxes. And I do find it very, very handy, particularly for like when I use the boxes that are dark in color, like they're you can't see through them is what it is.
Yeah.
So I do like to have a piece of tape on there that says, this is the concrete saw, for example, which sits up in my shop and it sits in a box by itself, but I know where it is because I can look at the box. I don't have to open the lid to the box, so use tape and a marker to mark your stuff off. Johnny, I think that's enough for the day.
Yeah. So we'll put all this in the show notes for all you guys. Yeah. If you're interested, let us know what else you guys might have that we've missed here. But Larry, with the aliens. Speaking of this list, did they check your nozzle?
No, Johnny. They told me that they had the checklist for you, and they were trying to pressure washing, and they're like, "Whoa, this is no good. This is not good." Wow, look at that. All right, with that, folks, please like and subscribe our podcast both on YouTube and on the things that we're here. If you have any questions, comments, and concerns, it's questions@handymanprosradioshow.com. We do answer our emails too, so all of that good groovy stuff. We've got a Facebook group at Handyman Pros. We've been getting some good stuff out there. I've been posting a lot of stuff lately on Facebook that's just kind of things that are, I don't know what I want to say. It's just sort of some of it's common sense stuff, and some of it. What was the one I posted the other day that I got some good comments on? But it was a thing about I don't remember exactly, but it was a good tip, and people were like, "Yeah, thanks for the tip," and it was just sort of simple things. So anyway, with that, Johnny, take us home, baby.
All right, folks, have a safe week. Have a fun week. Make some money for you handymen out there, and we will see you next time on the Handyman Pros Radio Show.